Hello, my fellow butterfly travelers. Welcome to our sacred space, where healing meets truth and transformation becomes practical. I am Babs, your chief travel partner on this journey inward. And whether this is your first time here or your weekly ritual, know this: you are not here by accident. Each week we gather to explore life's deeper questions, uncover hidden wisdom, and walk one another home to the truth of who we are. Not some far off truth, not some unreachable enlightenment, but the truth that's been whispering to us all along, waiting for a quiet moment to be heard. So settle in, let your shoulders drop, and take a breath with me. Let your nervous system soften. Let your mind unclench its grip. Let your heart exhale the story that it's been holding. Let's step into this sacred conversation together. So let me ask you something tender, something sacred. Have you ever sat with your own heart and quietly wondered, shouldn't I be further along by now? Or why does it still ache after all of the work that I have done? Or maybe, why do I keep circling the same pain in different packaging, praying it finally leads me somewhere new? Maybe you've whispered it under your breath as the tears dried before anyone could see. Maybe you've yelled it at the heavens in a moment of exhaustion, asking, why does this still hurt so much? Or maybe you've tucked it away behind a smile, secretly wondering if you're just not ever going to get it right. If your soul whispered yes, if your body exhaled a knowing, then hear me now, love. You are not alone. And more importantly, you are not off track. You see, this isn't failure. This is formation. We happen to live in a world that idolizes arrival, that praises the perfect before and after story, that tells us healing is a finish line you cross and never look back. But that's not the soul's way. Soul isn't interested in neat timelines. Soul is interested in truth. And sometimes truth takes the long way home. So if you feel like you're in between, like you're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming, you are standing at one of the most sacred thresholds that exists. That space between what was and what wants to be. And yes, my friends, it may feel like a fog, like restlessness, like waiting for clarity to land in a world that just won't stop spinning. You may feel tired of trying, or scared of not trying hard enough. You may wonder if you're just circling the drain of your own patterns. But love, let me reframe this moment for you, because you see, this is not regression. Where you are, where you stand, is in sacred reorientation. See, we often call this space stuckness, but I call it the sacred pause. It's not the absence of movement. It's the invitation to stillness. It is not punishment. It's preparation, because something holy happens when we stop rushing our own becoming. The world teaches us that healing is linear, that growth is a straight line from pain to peace, that there's a 5-step method to wholeness if we just follow it faithfully. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, arrival. But the soul, oh sweet one, the soul moves in spirals. The soul circles back, not to punish you for what you didn't heal, but to deepen your understanding, to show you what you weren't ready to see the first time, to integrate not what you've learned, not just what you've learned, but who you've become along the way. The spiral isn't failure. The spiral is embodiment. And if you find yourself back in familiar territory, a familiar wound, a familiar fear, know this: you're not back at the beginning. You are meeting that part of yourself again from a higher octave of awareness. You're not starting over. You are spiraling upward. So please take this truth into your heart and let it settle. Friends, you are not broken. You are becoming. Becoming isn't always visible. Sometimes it looks like stillness, like silence, like shedding. But underneath it all, the new roots are growing. And your soul knows exactly what it is doing. So let's not rush the sacred. Let's not shame the spiral. Let's walk each curve with grace together. Somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, the inner work became performance. Not intention, not sacred practice, but another invisible measuring stick that I held up to myself daily. It became something to achieve, something to master, something to post about so others could see that I was doing the work. It was subtle at first, like smoke curling from the flame of truth. I didn't notice how easily devotion turned into obligation, how sincerity quietly morphed into striving, how inner work became a quiet competition, not with others, but with some ideal version of myself that I kept trying to become. And before I knew it, it wasn't healing anymore. It was performing. It became another arena where I felt I had to prove my worthiness. Another checklist to mark off. Morning meditation, check. Affirmation on the bathroom mirror, check. Gratitude list before bed, check. Breathe through the anxiety, light the candle, clear the energy, forgive, release, surrender. But I wasn't feeling more free. I was feeling fatigued. Instead of coming home to myself, I was constantly renovating a self I thought still wasn't enough. I was trying to fix what was never broken, trying to transcend my humanity instead of embrace my divinity through it. And I know this not because I read it in a book or heard it in a workshop, but because I lived it. I had become fluent in the language of healing and fluent in the fear of not being healed enough. I was doing all the right things. All of the things the spiritual world told me would bring peace and power and purpose. I had affirmations written on gold ink taped to my mirrors. I never missed a full moon ceremony. I bathed in gratitude lists. I burned sage like it was oxygen. I practiced breath work and Reiki, journaled my feelings with beautiful pens in linen-covered notebooks. I recited prayers and mantra between bites of kale and quinoa. I had books upon books stacked higher than my bedside lamp, some ancient, some new, all promising clarity, liberation, purpose, alignment. And still I felt hollow, like I had painted the walls of my life with spiritual wisdom but never touched the foundation underneath. Like I was living in a beautifully curated space that didn't feel like home. Like I was decorating the cage instead of unlocking the door. I couldn't understand why the rituals weren't working. I was doing all of the things, and yet I still felt empty, disconnected, and unsure of what was real anymore. Until one day I stopped. I stopped doing, I stopped fixing, I stopped striving to become someone more palatable, more high vibe, more enlightened. And instead, I started to listen. Not to another teacher, not to another podcast or passage or psalm or plan, but to the still small voice that had been quietly waiting under all of my effort. And in that sacred silence, I heard something so simple and so clear. Beloved, you don't need to be more spiritual. You need to be more you. Not the you who always has the answer, not the you who shows up polished and poised and perfect, but the real you, the raw you, the radiant, vulnerable, stumbling through the dark and still worthy you. And that was the moment something shifted inside of me. That whisper, that was the moment that the seeds of the Life Charter were planted, not as a tool to perform better and not as another spiritual spreadsheet, but as a sacred remembering, a remembering of what I already knew, that wholeness is not a finish line. It's a frequency. It is my identity. That I didn't need another ritual to find myself. I needed a sacred space where my soul could exhale and simply be. The Life Charter became that space for me. Again, not a fix, but a framework, a sacred mirror to see who I already was underneath the noise. The Life Charter wasn't born from perfection. It was born from the moment I surrendered my performance and chose to live from presence. And from that day forward, everything changed. Not because I was doing more, but because I was finally doing less with more truth, more love, and more of me. Let's talk heart to heart about something I hear so many of my travel partners say. It's a quiet ache, a frustration just under the surface, a question that keeps circling in their chest even as they light candles, meditate, and write out their dreams in beautiful journals. And it goes something like this. Why isn't the inner work working? You see, you've shown up, you've done the journaling, the affirmations, the meditations, the prayers, the shadow work, you've read the books. You have sat in ceremony, you have cried the tears and tried to trust the process, and yet there is still a part of you that feels disconnected, stuck, or somehow not enough. So let's tell the truth about it, lovingly but clearly. It's not that the work is wrong. It's that the approach may be rooted in something the soul was never meant to carry. Effort. Not alignment. We live in a culture, yes, even a spiritual one, that teaches us to work on ourselves, to hustle toward healing, to do more, feel deeper, be better, get freer. And slowly, silently, we start to treat our own inner becoming like another job to master, another list to complete, another standard to reach. Even in our healing, we've started grading ourselves. And when we don't feel better, fast enough, or joyful enough, or healed enough, we assume that we are failing. But love, you are not a project. You are a soul, not a spreadsheet. And the moment we turn our sacred unfolding into a productivity plan, we've already stepped out of alignment with our truth. Because when we approach healing from the lens of effort, we send a subtle but devastating message to our innermost self. And that message is that there is something wrong with you. There's something to fix. You're not quite enough yet. And even the most beautiful practices, when done from that energy, can become heavy, hollow, and yes, hurtful. Here is the truth, dear one. Your worth is not something to earn. It is not a prize you unlock when you've done enough inner work. It is not the reward for your suffering. It is not conditional upon your ability to stay positive, manifest perfectly, or maintain your morning routine. Worthiness is not a destination. Worthiness is your birthright. It was woven into your being before you ever took your first breath. Your worthiness existed before the trauma, before the confusion, before you forgot, before anyone tried to make you doubt who you are. And healing is not about fixing what is broken. It is not about proving anything to anyone, not even yourself. Healing is the sacred remembering of truth. It is that quiet homecoming to your own essence. It's the gentle reclaiming of the parts of you that were pushed away or punished or forgotten along the way. It is the inner exhale when you realize, I am already whole. I was always whole, even when I felt fragmented. But sometimes that remembering doesn't come through doing more. Sometimes to truly heal, we have to stop fixing and start facing. Facing what? Ourselves, the truth of how we feel, the patterns we're tired of repeating, the pain we've been trying to bypass with all of our high vibe positivity, the sacred mess underneath the spiritual mask. Because what we face with compassion, not criticism, begins to soften. It begins to dissolve. It begins to integrate. And slowly we shift from performing healing to embodying truth, from checking boxes to checking in with our soul, from effort to alignment. So if the inner work isn't working the way you hoped, beloved, maybe it's not that you've done it wrong. Maybe it's that you're being called deeper. Not into more doing, but into more being, more honesty, more softness, more surrender. And that is where true healing begins. We have 3 shifts. The first is from fixing to facing. The first shift is the most tender of it all and asks you not to change or to do more, but to be patient with what is already there, waiting in the corners of your heart. You see, fixing is fueled by fear, the kind of fear that whispers, there's something wrong with me. There is something broken inside, and I have to hurry up and correct it. If I could just finally get it right, then I would be okay. And then I would be loved. And then I would be safe. It's the voice that puts healing on a timer and transformation on a pedestal. It's the energy of urgency, of striving, of not enoughness. And even when it wears a spiritual mask, like meditation, journaling, prayer, or devotion, if it's coming from fear, it will never, ever bring peace. Facing, on the other hand, is led by love. It says, there is a part of me longing to be seen. There's nothing broken, just something buried. There is a wound that wants to breathe, a truth that wants to speak, a self that wants to be held. Facing invites presence. It invites softness. It is not a task, it is a tending to. When we stop trying to fix ourselves like we're a problem to be solved and start facing ourselves like we are beloved, everything begins to shift. Because, my friends, what we witness with compassion, we transform with grace. True healing doesn't come from criticizing what hurts. It comes from turning toward it with eyes of mercy and a heart of reverence. So if you feel stuck, if your life keeps circling around the same ache, the same argument, the same wound wrapped in different names or faces, please don't try harder. Please don't double down on fixing. Face softer. Yes, softer, not weaker, not passive, but with the strength that comes from surrendering to truth, the courage that comes from seeing what is real and still choosing love. Let this be your prayer, whispered like a balm. I see the part of me that is scared, the one who never felt safe enough to exhale. I see the part that feels unseen, unheard, unworthy, and I will not push her away. I will stand with her. I will hold her hand. I will honor her story. I will not shame her. I will stay. Because that part of you, she's not a weakness. That part of you is a doorway, and you don't need more rules. What we need is more reverence. reverence for the journey, reverence for the divine design of our soul, reverence for the timing, the pauses, the spirals, and yes, the softness. And facing, while it's not a dramatic performance, it's a sacred returning. It might look like lighting a candle or whispering apologies to the version of you that you feel like you abandoned. It might be a walk with your grief, letting it speak instead of stuffing it down or coating it in platitudes. It might mean crying in the shower and letting your tears baptize the truth that you have been carrying. Or finally telling the truth to someone you love, not to get approval, but to stand in your sacred selfhood. Sometimes facing looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like screaming into a pillow or writing a letter that you will never send. But every time, it's presence, not performance. So love, when the impulse comes to fix, pause, breathe, soften, and face. Face yourself like the holy creation that you are, not a problem, not a project, but a soul in process, a being in bloom, and let every breath be your reminder. You don't need to be different to be divine. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You don't need to be fixed to be free, because you are already whole. You are already home. And facing that truth is where the miracle begins. Our second shift is from noise to knowing. And let's talk about that second shift, one that so many of us overlook because we're so used to being surrounded by sound, by suggestions, by the ceaseless hum of what everyone else thinks we should be doing. Most of us aren't stuck in confusion, beloved. We're stuck in noise. There's a big difference between not knowing and not hearing. Most of the time, we already know, but our knowing is buried beneath layers of distraction. And that noise, it doesn't always come from the outside. Sometimes it's internal. Sometimes that noise is old programming, voices that aren't even ours playing on a loop like background static. We're surrounded by it, the noise of comparison, scrolling through perfect squares and polished captions, wondering if we're too far behind to catch up. The noise of expectation, trying to meet standards no one ever named, but we carry them like sacred contracts. The noise of trying to get it right as if healing and becoming were tests at risk of failing. And let's not forget the noise of spiritual productivity, those 100 bookmark posts from strangers preaching morning rituals, 5-step manifestation methods, 3-minute routines to raise your vibration. Now listen closely. There's nothing wrong with those tools. What matters most is the energy that we put behind them. Are you reaching for them because they align with your truth? Or are you hoping they'll drown out your doubt? Because here is the sacred truth. The soul never screams. It doesn't shout over the noise. It whispers. Always. That still small voice inside you, that divine, loving, ancient voice, it doesn't compete for your attention. It waits, not to be louder, but to be heard. And you see, that's why stillness isn't a luxury. It's a language. Stillness isn't just about sitting cross-legged on a cushion. It's about creating space within and around you for your own wisdom to rise. It's the moment between the inhale and the exhale. It's the space between the thought and the story. It is the pause between the ache and the reaction. Stillness says, beloved, I am here. I never left you. You've just been surrounded by too much noise to notice. In the Life Charter, we honor this space. We protect it even. We don't just create quiet. We create sacred stillness. A holy hush where you're allowed to stop performing, stop pretending, stop pushing. and start remembering. Remembering what? Your own divine inner compass. Your divine design. Your personal truth, not someone else's curated version of success. You see, you already have a knowing. It lives in your body. It pulses in your breath. It shows up in the goosebumps, gut feelings, and gentle nudges that say this way. But to feel it, we have to unplug from the noise. And that's why this shift is so powerful. Because when you get quiet enough to hear truth, everything changes. And it doesn't require a mountaintop or a monastery. It might happen at your kitchen table with the dishwasher humming in the background. It might happen when you're watching your dog sleep or standing barefoot in the grass. So let me ask you something tender. When was the last time you were truly quiet enough to hear your soul? Not your fear, not your critic that's trying to protect you from disappointment, not the wounded voice that says you're too late, but yourself, your soul, the part of you that remembers your wholeness, the part that sees the long arc of your becoming and still says you are right on time. Here's a practice I often share with my travel partners. Place one hand on your heart and the other on your belly. Breathe. Softly, slowly, and ask yourself this simple, sacred question. What do I already know today? What do I know without reading anything, without asking anyone, without looking it up? And listen gently. The answer may come as a word, a phrase, a knowing in your chest, a warmth behind your eyes, a sigh you didn't know that you were holding. Maybe it won't come right away, and that's okay. The point is not to force clarity. The point is to return to the relationship with self, with soul, because your soul is still speaking, beloved, forever and always, even if it's just a whisper in the world that shouts, even if it's been a while since you've listened, even if you've forgotten how to trust your own inner voice. It is still there, waiting, willing, wise. Let this be the moment that you return to your knowing, not because it is louder, but because now you are ready to listen. Our third shift is from wishing to witnessing. So let's talk about that third sacred shift. A shift from passive hope to powerful embodiment. A shift that turns daydreams into direction and soul longing into spiritual leadership. Because so many of us with the purest of hearts have been taught to manifest by wishing. We light a candle, we write an affirmation. We visualize under the new moon, we ask the universe, God, Spirit, to bring us the thing, the breakthrough, the blessing. And all of that is beautiful, truly. There is a sacredness in desire, in wanting more for your life and naming it with your lips and holding it in your heart. But true transformation, lasting, embodied, sustainable transformation doesn't come from wishing. It comes from witnessing. Because you don't create your next chapter by longing for it like it's out there in some distant future. You birth it, you co-create it, you live it by becoming the person who can hold it now. You see, that's the shift, that's the sacred turn. You move from waiting for the miracle to becoming the vessel that welcomes it. You move from praying for change to walking in alignment with the answer. You stop asking, when will it happen? You start declaring, I am who it's happening through. And that, beloved, is the heartbeat of LifeCharter. Because inside LifeCharter, we don't just dream. We design, we decide, and we devote to living truth. Not just writing about it. Yes, every page in the LifeCharter is a journal, but it isn't just a journal. It is a declaration. It is an altar where your soul and your strategy meet. We clarify core values, not the ones we were taught to adopt, but the ones that actually light us up. We envision our ideal life not as fantasy, but as frequency, as something we begin to inhabit, not just for hope. We define aligned goals across every sacred domain of life: health, money, love, purpose, pleasure, service, rest. We gently excavate the hidden beliefs, the ones that buried beneath the surface, that kept us small, silent, or scattered. And we replace them not with toxic positivity, but with sacred structure. Structure that feels like freedom. Structure that supports your soul. Structure that says, I honor my vision enough to protect it. You see, we don't hustle. We don't push. We partner. We partner with spirit. We partner with self. We partner with each other. Because when you witness yourself clearly, you don't wait for life to choose you. You choose life. Let me share a quick story with you. One of my travel partners, let's call her Miriam, a radiant woman in her late 40s, came into our community completely burned out. She had the spiritual resume most people would admire: therapy, coaching, retreats, inner child work, journals upon journals. And she said to me, Babs, I have done so much healing work, but I'm still unclear. I have spent so long trying to release the past, I forgot to dream about the future. So we slowed everything down. We turned down the volume on all of the noise, and we listened for the whisper, the quiet wisdom beneath the effort. And together we built her life charter, not from her wounds, but from her wisdom. We didn't ask what's wrong with me. We asked what is ready to emerge. Fast forward 9 months later, she quit a draining job that had kept her small for over a decade. She moved into a new home that made her feel expansive, not constricted. She began painting again, something she hadn't done since her 20s. And she wrote her first poem in over 10 years. Not because she fixed herself, but because she witnessed her truth. And she chose to live it. So let me tell you what I tell all of my travel partners. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are becoming. And that longing in your belly, that ache in your chest, that whisper in your heart, it is not anxiety, it is guidance. It's the part of you that remembers, that knows what you came here to do. And if you're ready to stop doing healing and start living healed, then join me in the next LifeCharter Incubator. It's 2 days, live, interactive, gentle, sacred, practical. You walk away not just inspired, but with integration. You don't just feel good, you walk away equipped. So if your soul is whispering, if your inner voice just got a little louder, comment the word home below or head over to my bio and reserve a spot. You don't need to know about the program. Let's align with what life has been waiting for you. And so we pause here, sweet one, not as an ending, but as a breath before the next beautiful becoming. And if this time together stirred you or stirred something within you, I invite you to keep walking with us, whether through the LifeCharter Incubator or our weekly soul challenges, or simply by sharing this message with someone who needs it. Your journey matters. Your voice matters, and you are never walking alone. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. I love you deeply, for in truth, we are old friends because we are one. So until next time, stay rooted in your truth and wrapped in divine love with your head up and your wings